Cindy. My name is Maria Payan. I am an independent consultant for a nonprofit, which is a national nonprofit. It's called Socially Responsible Agriculture Project. As Cindy mentioned, I come up to Delaware very often. My mother is here. She lives in Selbyville. I've been coming up, as a matter of fact, since I was a young child. I think my first job was at the Eastern Shore when I was 12, right? We have a lot to talk about today, and what I want to start with is where we're at and how we got here and where we're going. The first thing that I think everybody knows, Vlasic Pinnacle is or has left the site. They are abandoning the site. They are consolidating in another state. They have no plans to pursue any type of business activity here in the future. One of the things that's good to know is that Pinnacle is a viable company. They are not bankrupt. Okay, in 2013, they raised $580 million for its owners, private equity group, which is called Blackstone Group. Pinnacle Foods has a marketing capitalization of $2.3 billion. It is listed as one of the top 1,000 on the Fortune 1000 stock market, the New York Stock Exchange. So we are not talking about a company that fell upon bankruptcy and now there's a contaminated site and they're leaving. This is a viable company. Delaware has not gone after it. They keep saying they can. They have not. Instead, they have elected to have this Brownsfield site be taken care of with public dollars. Part of the things with Brownfield site is that a lot of the money that goes into this is public money, which means you guys are left cleaning up their mess. So if anybody thinks that's a just use of their money, so be it. I personally think that the state of Delaware should be calling upon Pinnacle to clean up their own mess. Where we are right now is we have multiple appeals going on. The first thing that had to happen for this site to be taken over by the South Korean Harim to put a processing plant on the site was they had to go for a hazardous use. And this was in the Sussex County zoning. It's the Board of Adjustment. So when I had actually fallen upon this, they had had their first meeting for the hearing. They are already a heavy industrial use, but they needed a zoning special exception for what they call potentially hazardous. The citizens were never told in that hearing that the site was contaminated. No one knew it was a Brownsfield. We found that out when I went to do the first file review in Sussex County, and we got all the documents out of there. And I said, do you know that's contaminated over there? Well, let's put it this way. Possum Point and the surrounding communities, Wharton's Bluff, they were not very happy that they were living within such proximity to a contaminated site, and the state of Delaware never told them. If you understand Possum Point and some of the surrounding areas, they are on private wells. And their wells, most of them are very shallow. We're talking between 33 to 50 feet deep, and John will get into a lot more of this with the water. But there's a very serious threat to their well water. Okay, so when we found out that they were trying to get this use permit, Cindy and Samantha, who was almost 9 months pregnant, the board had to open up their hearing again because they did not go through the proper protocol. They were notified by their solicitor that part of meeting the burden of the ordinance was to reach out to the proper state agencies to make sure that the groundwater was protected and public health was protected. So the board, on the night that their decision was supposed to have been made, they reopened the hearing to solicit these agencies to give them testimony. The public health department, state health department was never called upon. And if you understand the site here, within 2 miles, we have 2 Superfund sites. One is on the national priority list. You have a power plant, you have a Mount Air rendering plant. So within a 2-mile radius, you have a lot of pollution on a very small area of people here. We hired Rich Abbott, who is a local zoning attorney, and part of this program of them coming in to do a brownfield, there's something called an EB5 program, and what this does is it allows an industry to come in and search out foreign investment money. They can put they have to put $500,000 into the site, and they have to guarantee 10 U.S. jobs. And for that, in exchange, they get fast-track citizenship for themselves and their family. So this is part of the EB5 program that this is going in under. Part of the reasonings that we are appealing the local zoning is basically the board did not take the appeal from the property owner. Alan Harim actually put the zoning application in for potentially hazardous use. Alan Harim does not own this property. Pinnacle owns this property, so they should have applied for the use. That was the first thing. Second thing was the board failed to sufficiently consult with other agencies and lacked substantial evidence. And part of that I addressed was public health. As a matter of fact, we had John Hopkins, Bloomberg School of Public Health, actually sent testimony into the board because they did not solicit public health, and some of the citizens had asked them. Their recommendations basically talked about the occupational safety risks for the workers, including injury and exposure to drug-resistant pathogens, environmental impacts of large poultry processing plants, including the excessive water usage and the wastewater discharge, which will be into the Indian River. Air pollution from the increased truck traffic, that will negatively impact public health. And they also talked about exposure to antibiotic pathogens from poultry transport trucks. John Hopkins Center for a Livable Future did a study not too long ago where they basically followed poultry trucks, and they had sanitized items in a car, left the windows down, and drove, I believe it wasn't that far, maybe 2 miles, and then they tested inside the car, and they actually tested the antibiotic resistant pathogens from the birds on the truck inside the car. So that was one of the things that they talked about in their letter to the board. Okay, the other things that we are appealing in the decision is that it failed to follow legal notice in their public hearing requirements. When they had reopened that hearing, they should have public noticed it in the paper. It was never public noticed again in the newspaper. Unless you were in the room that night when the hearing decision was supposed to come about, you would not have known it. They had given a month to solicit different agencies like DENREC to get their opinion on it. And then they gave the citizens 1 week to respond to those comments that were never publicly noticed. Now, a lot of people, as you know, live out of town. So to physically get the comments through a right to know from the board, comment, get them mailed to you, comment on it and mail it back, it's physically impossible. Just the timeline. Cindy and Samantha went door to door. They got 270 public comments against us. So there's a lot of people in the community that are concerned about it, as they should be. So that's where we are in the local zoning appeal. On a note, we have February's bill we just got. I believe it's $2,700, and before it's all said and done, it's about a $5,000 full bill that we're looking at, in addition to, I think it was close to that we paid already, right, Cindy? Am I close? Yeah. Okay, so this is something that if anybody can help, please feel free to help. It's going to protect your community. The other part of this is a remediation plan. Now what this is when you have a contaminated site, a brownfield site, a developer, which would be Alan Harim, came to the site, said, we want to, open business here. Now, the ownership of that property is contingent on the development of this brownfield program. So what they have to do is test the site, find out where the pollutants are, what the pollutants are, and they're supposed to remediate it upon coming in, and that relieves them of liability. So there's some giveaways with it. The remediation plan, after numerous comments from many experts who asked them to do more testing on-site and to test off-site because of the numerous homes that are in close proximity, they refused to do that. So Ken Crystal and the Widener Loss Clinic, they are doing an appeal of the remediation plan, and that is being done in the Inland Bays Foundation and Protecting Our Indian River. So I believe that's going to be May 13th, am I correct, John? That the appeal is going to be taking place on that. The next thing that we want to talk about is we have a democracy problem here. More so than an environmental problem and a lot of the other problems that we've been seeing. There's a huge democracy problem going on with this issue. As everyone knows, this is a pet project of Governor Markell's. We have our state representative, John Atkins, and Senator Hocker, who are supporting this. Neither have met with the citizens to hear their concerns. They did come to, we had Wilson College students doing their spring project, and they did come to talk to them there, the students. But there has been no public meeting as of yet, although we have requested it many times. Now I believe John Atkins is initiating one. John Atkins and Ed Key came out on a radio station. What's the name of the station?
WHD.
WHD?
Delaware 105.
Okay, and it was Jared, I believe,
Correct.
was Jared Morris, who was interviewing. They were interviewing Ed Key, who was the Secretary of Agriculture, as well as John Atkins. And John Atkins had written on his Facebook page that he basically wanted to separate the facts from the fiction. And I was very happy that he said that, because there's a lot of facts that I would like to set straight, and not just by way of mouth, with documentation. So I'm going to go through a little bit of rebutting some of the things that were said on the program. The first thing that was said, Ed Key stated that contaminants at the former Pinnacle Blastics site are in trace amounts of 2 or 3 materials. Test wells were placed around the perimeter of the site. DENREC's testing said it hasn't left the site. John Atkins asked DENREC Secretary Colin O'Mara, has anything left the site? O'Mara's answer was no. This is not factual. No off-site testing was done on any of the named contaminants by DENREC, so of course they didn't find it. They did not look. Secretary Colin O'Mara cannot make a statement like that with any credibility. No off-site testing was done as part of the remediation site investigation. As I mentioned, numerous experts, even Alan Harim's own environmental engineers, stated that more testing was needed. There's numerous residential developments, many on very shallow wells near the site. There's one way to ensure that you don't find contamination, and that's that you don't look for it. I think the general